theirs in the same field. And I'm also tabling facts when I say the current chairperson of Harith, the former deputy minister of finance who chaired the PIC, as well as Matlwale, were once worked for the PIC. And I've asked the commission to say, why can't you verify the questions related to a conflict of interest? And I'm going to engage you today and in future, because I've got also questions which you need to answer together with your colleague, with your clients, especially the web of companies which they have since established, but using the public funds. So I'm not going to stop on this one.
Well, Mr. Holomisa, let's just be clear. Are you stating these things as facts?
They are facts. They are facts, because I'm going to prove to you that they are facts.
You don't have to prove to me. The question is, you said before this commission when you testified the last time, you said, I do not possess the tools to verify the information. Now you're saying you are stating them as fact.
These are facts based on the research I've made, but in order to verify the authenticity of or otherwise of those allegations, they have the tools.
See, I want to put it to you, Mr. Holomisa, before I get to your questions, that this is your pattern. You've done it before when you wrote a letter to the president, my clients, when you say all you wanted really was for the president to set up a commission. You could have written to the president to say, I have these questions, I think you should set up a commission. But you chose to publicize it and in the process defame my clients. Similarly, when you came before this commission, you didn't come with facts, you came with questions. Similarly, you could have written to this commission to say, these are my questions, these are the areas I suggest the commission should investigate, but instead you came here to defame my clients.
Well, unfortunately, for your information, I forwarded my evidence beforehand, and the decision was taken by the commission to come and testify here, so that's why I came.
You were not subpoenaed to come and testify. You came freely.
Voluntarily, yes.
Yes. Isn't the real issue, your real agenda is to boost your political agenda at the expense of the dignity and reputation of my clients?
Well, unfortunately, I'm a public representative. And also, I've got a direct interest in the management of the pension funds in this country. So I'm not doing it for self-promotion or whatever, or an agenda. So I take a strong exception in what you are saying.
You have a strong interest in the management of the pension fund. Is that what you said? You're talking about the GEPF, the Government Employees Pension Fund.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we'll get there. Let's have a quick look at the letter you sent to the president. If you turn to the large bundle, that's the urgent application bundle.
Can we give them exhibit numbers? Is it necessary, or is it easy to access them?
Can we?
I'm asking you.
I'm sorry, Chair.
Can we give them exhibit numbers?
Yes, I think the urgent application should be Exhibit 1 and the transcript Exhibit 2.
So you are now referring to Exhibit 1?
I'm referring to Exhibit 1. When I say the transcript, I mean the transcript bundle, which includes the statements of Mr. Holomisa. So I'm now referring to Exhibit 1, yes.
What page is that?
Starting at page 48, but just to put it in context, Mr. Olomisa, you'll recall there's a founding affidavit which starts at page 6.
Page 6.
I think it's helpful if you refer to
Yes.
the page numbers as well
Yes, I'm
in the
referring.
document. You're referring to page 48 now of that bundle.
Yes, I was just putting it in context for the witness. This is an affidavit, a founding affidavit, which is dated the 2nd of July, 2018. That's at page 41. And then I was referring the witness to page 48, which is the letter. This is the letter that you sent to the President and publicized on your website and on Twitter. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Where you said, unmasking Harith and Lebashe's alleged fleecing of the Public Investment Corporation.
Yes, sir.
Now, I'm not going to read everything because the letter is being dealt with in another forum.
Thank you for acknowledging that.
But what I do want to refer you to, after you write lots of things, if you go to page 51, paragraph 5, after you set out your letter, in paragraph 5 you say, the above reads like a spy novel with incomprehensible twists and turns, with only clues as to the real nature of the relationship between these companies and Messrs. Mahlwele, Moleketi, and Wheatley. From the above information, one can, however, see that there is a complicated system at work, to apparently hide that the PIC is being fleeced at an astonishing pace. That was your conclusion, correct?
Correct.
Then you say in paragraph 6, there are several pertinent points to be made and questions to be answered, Mr. President. They are, but not limited to. And then you set them out. And as I read them, I want you to think back to the questions that you posed for this commission when you testified and see the similarity between what you say here and what you've said before this commission. You say, 6.1, how was Harith formed using PIC monies, and for what reason was it allowed or predestined that Mr. Mahlwele should automatically move from the PIC, Corporate Finance and Isibaya Fund, to Harith CEO? It does seem like a cushy arrangement. Do you recall that the answer to this was given in the court papers?
Well, I will have to check on that,
All right, we'll get there.
but it doesn't make any difference anyway. I still
Why doesn't it make any difference? If you are an honest broker, as you claim to be, and all you're doing is asking questions to expose corruption, if you get an answer from the person that you are accusing of corruption, isn't that an important piece of evidence to place before the commission?
That's why the President has reacted by appointing this Commission of Inquiry, which has got the powers to verify those questions and allegations. So I don't know what you are trying to get at here.
Mr. Holomisa, do you not understand my question?
Maybe I didn't
It seems so.
simplify it.
You pose questions here in the letter to the President.
Yes.
You get given certain answers in a court application.
No, that was your route. I'm saying the President has appointed the inquiry. That was your client's route to go to court. And I complied, I responded.
Okay, let me move on. I see you're not understanding my question.
Thank you.
In 6.2, you say, at face value, there seems to be a concerted effort
I'm
to...
sorry, is it Mr. Berger?
Yes, Judge.
Yeah, wouldn't it be fair to refer to the answer if you say there is an answer?
Yes.
Are you going to do that?
I'm certainly going to do that,
Thank
yes.
you. Okay.
Yes. Chair, in fairness to the witness and to the Commission, let me indicate that I will certainly be going through the formation of, I'll be dealing with the PAIDF 1 and 2, Harith FM, Harith GP, Lebache, and the Capitec transactions. That's all that I'm going to be dealing with.
Just if we could ask you for a sense of a picture and clarity, if you are able to do it, and if you can't do it now, perhaps into, before this, before we take them back, in due course, if you can, provide us with an organogram of the entirety of the structures that we are talking about, whether it is the individuals, Labashe, Harith, any other corporates that are related to them, so that we've got a picture of what that conglomerate looks like, and where there are cross-directorships and where the PIC has invested money. So whether it's the PIDF or anything, and who's where in that. So we've got a picture that we can look at.
Yes, Commissioner, we can do that, but I hope by the end of the cross-examination that picture will also be a lot clearer than it is at the moment.
But I'd like it in front of me as a diagram.
Yes.
With all the related parties, investments, where the PIC has been, so that we can have a picture at a glance of exactly what this looks like.
Well, Commissioner, we can't give you everywhere where the PIC has been, because we've interacted with the PIC. But I understand what it is that you want, yes.
If you can, in due course. Thank you very much.
Let me not belabor the point, but I ask you, Mr. Olomisa, to read these questions to yourself, and the point that I'm making to the Commission, when they read these questions, you'll see the mirror image between these questions and the questions that you asked when you last gave evidence.
That's fine, sir, but you must know that since 2016, I've been following up all these nauseating exposés in the media, and also did a little bit of research. And even after we went to court, more people came to me and say, these are the trends. And obviously, the questions I've asked then will not be that different from the other questions I've framed, but it has got the same meaning. Conflict of interest. How did it come that the former PIC workers went outside PIC and established this network of companies using PIC funds? And I'm interested when you start painting a picture to tell us what is PIDF is and where did you get involved, because I've got nice questions lined up for you and your clients.
That's good, Mr. Holomisa.
I'm not sure, Mr. Olomisa, that you'll get an opportunity to ask counsel those questions.
Let's continue with your questions on page 51 of Exhibit 1. I'm jumping, not because I'm leaving out questions, but just in the interests of time.
On a point of order, I thought the commissioners have said, paint a picture of what we are here for.
Mr. Olomisa, we're not in Parliament. The commissioners have requested certain documents from us, and we will get those documents to the commissioners.
All right.
Your task at the moment is just to answer my questions.
You are also sounding arrogant by saying, I'm not in Parliament. Can you withdraw that?
Points of order are raised in Parliament, Mr. Holomisa.
Can you withdraw that?
I think let's allow council to carry on and ask the questions that he wants.
Then you ask, in 6.3, you say Harith and Lebache seem to be the same company. In 6.4, you say of interest is the nature of the relationship between Lebache and the PIC. In 6.5, you say there is something seriously wrong where Lebache is concerned. From our research, little is known about Lebache, and it must be established for whom do they manage 8.5 billion rands worth of assets. So you thought at that time that Lebache manages other people's assets.
It's true, and I've since realized that before Lebache became Lebache, it was Petrotouch.
Yes?
Yes, so.
You didn't realize that. You were told that when we filed our
Yes.
answering papers. In 6.6, you say, are companies with seemingly legitimate businesses not front companies for a select group of super rich people to siphon money from the PIC? You're referring there to Harith and Lebache.
Yes, sir.
In 6.7, you ask about whether the PIC corporate machinery had done a due diligence. In 6.8, you say, is there any truth in that these seemingly 100% black-owned companies, where at least one or more of the gentlemen are involved, are window dressing for white companies to access funds from the PIC by playing the BEE card? That's still a question that bothers you?
It is still a question.
And then over the page in paragraph 7, you say, Mr. President, instead of being a giant machinery that creates wealth opportunities for South Africans, it is clear that individuals such as Messrs. Mahluele, Machila, Moleketi, and Wheatley are at least double or triple dipping in the PIC's funds. In fact, one shudders to consider how many conduits they have at their disposal to sap PIC funds. That's still your view, is it?
That's what I said, and I still stand by what I said.
Despite what has been told to you in the court papers?
That is the version of your clients. I'm happy now that we have an independent institution which is going to investigate these questions. So don't continue to refer me to what you answered in court. Here is an institution which has got better tools, well equipped than the court.
But Mr. Holomisa, do you recall whether those questions were answered, whether it was in court or elsewhere?
Come again, sir?
Do you or don't you recall whether those questions were answered, whether it was in court papers or elsewhere?
I think my legal counsel can attest to that. I think we did respond to the questions.
So the questions seem to me to be coming from you that counsel has just referred to. I'm asking whether you can recall that those questions were answered in the court papers as suggested by counsel.
I doubt very much, but let's check with my legal attorney here, legal representative.
Fine.
Thank you, Chair. So now coming to Exhibit 2, the transcript of your evidence. Page 23. You say at the bottom of the page, this is line 22, there also seemed to be a network of selected individuals who have easy access to the PIC's resources, which needs to be untangled and revealed. It would also be advisable for the Commission to be proactive and investigate the unlisted transactions where it is necessary to obtain a full board permission. In other words, up to less than 2 billion rand transaction can be approved without consulting a board.
You're
So-
referring to page 23 of Exhibit
23 at the bottom.
2, at the
Yes.
bottom,
Exhibit 2.
where it says there also seemed to be a network. So
Yes, yes, that is. So you said, so it will behove the Commission to demand perhaps a printout of all these unlisted transactions for the period under review in order to satisfy itself that these transactions were above board. Do you know that there's been a printout of unlisted transactions created by the PIC?
Yes, I think there is. I've got a copy if you want.
So why do you ask the Commission to get a list of the transactions, unlisted transactions of the PIC when you already have it? Why don't you just say, here is the list, and give it to the Commission?
I've since shared that list with them.
Since you testified.
But remember that there has been a clarion call by many in this country to the effect that the unlisted transactions are the ones which people are worried about. As to whether these people, there has been a due diligence before those billions were given to them, and whether those billions are being serviced. So it is in the public domain, it is in the interest of the public that those transactions, unlisted transactions, the Commission will have to have a finding on them when they conclude this inquiry.
So you don't know that there's anything wrong in any particular transaction. You just say the Commission must investigate all the unlisted transactions to see if perhaps there's something wrong. Is that your request?
For instance, your clients claim to have serviced an amount of a transaction of about 700 and something million rands.
720 million.
Yes, but when you look at this document, you will find that up until 2018, it would appear that they did not pay the amount in question. The onus is on you and your clients to table the proof that you have paid that amount of money.
Where are you reading from, Mr. Holomisa?
I'm reading from my documents.
Documents that you made available to the Commission?
Yes, this document, listed transactions, sorry. Yes.
Can we have a copy of that
I'll
document?
make a copy available to you, and you will see how many companies which have taken billions and millions from these unlisted transactions, which at least on this document seem to not to have been serviced. Maybe the Commission should sort or should seek from the PIC an updated version which might prove that indeed you had serviced your loan.
Are you saying that the 720 million rand loan has not been paid back?
According to this.
Is that what you're saying?
That's why I'm saying to you, satisfy this Commission by producing the proof. The PIC must also nod to that. Added to that, the PIC must upgrade this spreadsheet of unlisted transactions.
Mr. Holomisa, you can't defame people like this in the manner that you do. You can't come with allegations without putting the evidence before the Commission and in giving the people who you defame an opportunity to investigate that information. It just doesn't work like that.
But you've just asked me whether I've given this information to the Commission, and I said yes.
No, I referred you to your evidence where you said the commission should ask for a list. You never indicated in that evidence that you had a list, did you?
In
Did
this,
you?
in this instance, you must remember that you are not alone who is fingered in the PIC. There are many other transactions which needs to be investigated here.
I'm sure you don't mean that counsel is referred to in the PIC. You mean his clients, or one or two
His
of them?
clients, yes.
Mr. Olomisa, let me be specific.
But sorry, Mr. Berger, the documents that you are referring to, is it the file that was handed over to us by Mr. Leber earlier?
Yes, yes, sir.
No, it's not there, Mr. Olomisa.
It's not there. Which document are you referring to?
You're referring to a document.
Ask Mr. Lupe, he will explain to you. I seem to be confused.
No, but is the document in the file?
Yes.
And if so, which one is it?
It's in the file which I handed over to Mr. Lupe.
It's
Last-
Annex 9, I think it's Annexure 9,
Yes,
which gives out all the transactions
yes.
that, yeah. I don't know whether you got, whether.
I'm sorry, Commissioner, Annexure 9 to what document?
Of the bundle from General Holomisa.
You didn't have that file?
I just hear from Mr. Libben now that this was handed in this morning. We certainly haven't had sight of this file at all.
It was made available to us this morning. Would you like some time to have a look at it?
We're gonna have to have some time, yes,
Yes.
Commissioner?
Yes. Now or a little later?
Will it take time? We only have an hour left, so perhaps we can consider this file when we break rather than waste time with the cross-examination now.
Fine.
Mr. Olomisa, we're still on page 24. This is exhibit 2. Yes.
Go ahead.
Round about line 19, you say, or it's line 17, why do we have the same persons and companies?
Page 24.
Page 24, line 17. The transcript, exhibit 2.
Yes. But where is this?
What line are you?
Line 17.
Oh, okay. Okay, go ahead, sir.
Why do we have the same persons, companies being empowered continuously, as you will see in the documents I've handed over? Could it be that there is a cartel of PIC beneficiaries? And a bit further down, you say, it appears to be a sophisticated capture of the PIC involving advisors, BE firms, and asset managers. And when you talk about BE firms and asset managers, you're talking about Le Bachet and the 2 Harith companies. Is that correct?
Including others as well.
I'm not interested in other companies, Mr. Holomisa. I'm interested in my clients. That's
So you're part of, your clients are part of that cartel, alleged cartel.
part of the cartel, alleged cartel.
But they are part of my presentation, if I may answer your question correctly.
You say this could be the crux of PIC dealings and alleged corruption. What do you mean, this could be the crux?
Let me address you, sir. Maybe you'll have a clearer picture.
I think it would be better to address me or us.
Sorry, Chairperson. One of the most difficult tasks regarding dealing with the type of corruption that is alleged to have happened at the PIC is the sophisticated nature of the transactions. Corruption can come in two forms: legal and illegal corruption. Legal corruption occurs when the elite builds a legal framework that protects corruption or manipulates existing legal framework without necessarily breaking the law. The task that is faced by this commission is to unravel some of the transactions that have been seemingly structured, following all the rules but with corrupt intent. Findings on those transactions could be difficult, but it's important to examine them and make recommendations to minimize reoccurrence in future. In addition to pursuing justice where laws were explicitly broken, the task is to find preemptive measures. I'll come to you now. The issues raised on Libashe investments and related entities that does not necessarily point to illegality, but raises questions of conflict of interest and appearance of easy access by the underlying beneficiaries of Libashe to the PIC. The key players are former Minister, Deputy Minister of Finance, and PIC Chairperson, Mr. Jabu Mulegeti, and Tsepo Mahlwele, former PIC Head of Investments, and Warren Whitley. The key players participate in various entities that benefit from the access to the PIC, different entities, same players. The alleged transactions from which the group benefited are as follows. 1, Petrotouch, whose name later changed to Libashe.
No, Mr. Olomisa, I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt you. I've let you go on and on. You're obviously reading from some prepared speech. Please listen to my question and rather answer only my question. Otherwise, we're going to be here forever.
No, Mr. Chairman, that's not fair. This is precisely the kind of question that warranted a contextual explanation from the witness. If my learned friend is impatient, well, then tough. But the witness is entitled to give an exposition.
My question to you is, on what basis? You can't have it both ways, Mr. Holomisa. You can't say on the one hand that you are not drawing conclusions of corruption on the part of my clients, and on the other hand say this could be the crux of a cartel. You can't say they were not acting illegally and then at the same time say they are members of a cartel.
No, I'm sorry, Mr. Berger, I don't wish to address you in a dialogue. You asked my client, what do you mean this could be the crux of the cartel? My client is answering the question, you interrupt him.
My learned friend shouldn't address me because that's not how these things work. But my point remains, I'm not asking for an exposition, Chair.
Well, Chair, why don't you allow me to unpack this for you so that we are in the same understanding?
Mr. Olomisa, I suggested that you address me or us here rather than directly to the client, to counsel, and address us what you want to ask him.
Chairperson, I'm saying to the legal representatives of Libashe and other companies, I'm saying to them, he has asked me a question, and I'm trying to explain why do I call this a cartel? And I was still going down and trying to paint a picture for you and himself, but he is interrupting me, so you may have to rule.
Can I just ask, what are you reading from? Are you reading from the
That's
record?
my prepared text. Those are my notes, sir.
Do we have a copy of that?
I can share a copy for you, but these are my prepared notes.
Is that quite long? Like how many, like is it a long note?
No, it's not long at all. But I was coming nicely to this cozy relationship between PIC and these companies.
Are you able to get there quicker?
I will try. Can I go ahead, sir?
Carry on.
The alleged transactions from which the group benefited are as follows. Petrotouch, whose name later changed to Lebashe, bought Capitec shares from the PIC and Carol Lagoon. The issues to be investigated are as follows. How was Petrotouch chosen to buy Capitec shares from the PIC? The PIC, the capital shares were warehoused by the PIC at the time. How much initial funding did the PIC provide? We are aware that the PIC is no longer, rather, change of names always raises suspicions, as we have seen.
I'm not sure you're going to get there quicker.
I'm getting there, sir.
Can I suggest, Mr. Olomisa, can I suggest that you save your prepared text for the end? And after I've asked you questions, if there's something that you still feel you need to say, you can read from your prepared text.
No, Chairperson, you gave me an opportunity to present and unpack this for you. I'm doing that. Please, can you stop interrupting?
Yes, but I also suggested that you get to the answer to the question quicker.
Okay. Well, if you look at Aluani Capital, it has been allocated over 10 billion rands worth of assets by the PIC. Who manages this? You have Warren Whitley, you have Jabum Leketi as directors. But to go back to the answer you seem to be interested in more is to say, yes, I confirm that this proximity of your clients to PIC is a worrisome.
Yes, you describe it as a cartel.
Yes, I stand by that. That commission will rule on that one.
Your allegation is that Mr. Wheatley, Mr. Mahlwele, and Mr. Moleketi are in a cartel with the PIC.
They are having an unfettered approach. Rather, they have an easy access to secure funding. But you didn't want me to go down with the transactions.
All right, let's move on.
Thank you.
Would you turn to page 28, please, of Exhibit 2?
28.
You there? Middle of the page, 28. You say one other transaction that needs careful scrutiny is the Pan-African Infrastructure Development Fund, where these monies are invested, that is the pension monies of the workers. Are you there?
Yes.
Right. We refer to the Pan-African Infrastructure Development Fund as the PAIDF. Okay?
Yes.
I want to refer you to keep the transcript open in Exhibit 2, and then go to Exhibit 1, page 288.
Thank you.
Now you'll see there, this is the replying affidavit in the urgent application. And you'll see there in paragraph 7, we deal with the year 2004. In fact, one can go back a page to page 287, where at the bottom of page 287 you'll see the order of events, the Harith companies is a heading, and then we have the year 2003. In 6.1, Mahlwele was employed as the head of corporate finance and the Isibaya Fund at the PIC. Do you know, or are you aware now that Mr. Mahlwele was employed at the PIC from 2003 to 2006?
I know that Mahlwele was an employee of PIC.
You don't know from when to
Yes, no. I'll have to check the document on that.
Well, you'll see there, the page before, as I said, that was the year 2003. And then it says Mahlwele was employed. And then in 6.2, it says Mahlwele remained in that position until March 2006. These are facts that were given to you during the urgent application, and you're aware of these facts.
That's fine. What's your question?
Do you know that Mr. Jabu Moleketi was the MEC for Finance and Economic Affairs in the province of Gauteng in 1994? Do you know that?
Yes, I'm aware.
And do you know that in 2004, Mr. Moleketi was appointed the Deputy Minister of Finance?
Up until 2008, I'm aware.
You're aware of all of that, yes. And that's what we say there in paragraph 7.1. That Mr. Moleketi was appointed Deputy Minister of Finance by President Mbeki. And in that capacity, he became the chairperson of the PIC. It was an ex officio appointment.
I know that.
Are you also aware that that has been the tradition for many years, that the Deputy Minister of Finance becomes the chairperson of the PIC, ex officio?
I'm aware.
And then in 7.2, you were told, towards the end of 2004, President Mbeki articulated a vision of the private sector playing a key role together with government by investing in the future development of infrastructure on the African continent. Are you aware of that?
Yes, I'm aware about the NEPAD program, which he announced, but what's your point exactly? Related to the funds of the pensioners?
Yes, I'm coming there.
Okay.
How long have you been in Parliament, Mr. Holomisa?
In 1994, and then 1996, as you are aware, probably aware, I was shown the door by the ANC. Then I came back in 1999 up until to date.
So you were in Parliament when President Mbeki, in fact, you were a member of the ANC when President Mbeki articulated his vision in 2004.
No. Holomisa left the ANC in 1996.
Oh, I beg your pardon, wrong decade. Are you not aware of President Mbeki's vision?
I'm aware. What has got to do with the pensions funds?
You don't know what the PAIDF has to do with the pension funds. You don't know what the PAIDF has to do with the GEPF.
I know about that, but I'm talking about the vision of Mbeki. By stating a vision, it didn't imply that the pension funds of the workers of this country must be used for that.
Do you know that the GEPF has its own independent board of trustees?
I'm aware.
And that it is the board of trustees that makes the investment decisions of the GEPF. Are you aware of that?
I'm aware.
Then if we move on,
Is that factually correct, that the GEPF, isn't it that the GEPF has given a mandate to the PIC to deal with its funds?
that is correct, but in certain instances, the board of trustees of the GEPF, my instructions are that the board of trustees of the GEPF makes its own investment decisions, and particularly in relation to the two investments in PAIDF 1 and PAIDF 2, it was the board of trustees chaired by Mr. Couscous, Martin, I'm not sure if that's the correct pronunciation.
It is the correct pronunciation.
Mr. Martin Couscous, who is he's also the chair, or he was at the time, the chairperson of the GEPF, and also chairperson of the PIDF, the Facilitation Trust. And I think he was also the chairperson of the PAIDF Facilitation Trust at the time.
Thank you.
Can I just get a bit of clarity on that? Are you
Yes.
saying that the GEPF directly took the decisions that invested in dollar terms around $600 million in those, because that's the question that I would want to know as well, just for our own information, about that's in the PAIDF, which was either 600 million, and I have another figure of 1.2 billion. And those decisions, are those the decisions you're talking about specifically taken by the GEPF directly, which related to the Lake Turkana wind power entity,
Yes.
the main one, which I don't know what that means, or the Henny-Konan Bridge? That's 1.2 billion US dollars.
Ms.
Is that the correct
Marcus?
reference?
Madam Commissioner, yes. The PAIDF, there were two funds set up. There's PAIDF 1 and PAIDF 2. The first fund had the sum of $630 million invested in it, and the second fund had an amount of 435, I beg your pardon, $1 million invested into it. In relation to the first fund, the 630 million fund, the GEPF invested $250 million, US dollars. 250 million out of 630 million was invested by GEPF. In relation to the second fund, the 435 million, the GEPF invested an amount of 350 million US dollars. And both of those decisions to invest were taken by the Board of Trustees of the GEPF.
Do we know who the other investors were in that? And
Yes, we
whether-
do. We
Can
do.
you give us that as well?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Yes. So if I could,
Just to add is that things could be different now, but it's likely that that decision actually it was taken by the GEPF because things were different then versus now.
yes, Mr. Commissioner, my instructions are that as a fact, and my clients will give evidence, as you know, on Monday, as soon as we finish the cross-examination. But as a fact, those two decisions were taken by the Board of Trustees of the GEPF at the
Fair
Okay.
enough, yeah. It's fine.
And
No
just
problem.
for general, perhaps, Advocate, if we could get how those funds have been performing, as well as the rate of return in dollar terms, because they were dollar investments, as distinct from rand terms.
It is noted, Mr. Commissioner, through you, and it will be followed up.
Mr. Olomisa, sorry,
Yes, sir.
are you aware of those facts, as I've told them to the Commission, that the decisions to invest in PAIDF 1 in an amount of 250 million US dollars and in PAIDF 2 in an amount of 350 million US dollars, those decisions were taken by the Board of Trustees of the GEPF?
The onus is on you, through your chairperson, to provide the proof or table those investments for the commission to scrutinize.
Ms.
But
Olomisa,
I'm aware that Harriet, among other things, was established to manage the PADF 1 and later 2. So there is therefore a relationship between the PAIDF as well as PIC. So what we would have to do when you testify on Monday is to give clarity, and hopefully the PIC itself will tell the Commission on how the relationship are managed between the PADF as well as PIC.
Mr. Holomisa, it would really help to get this cross-examination moving if you listened to my question and simply answered my question instead of advising my clients on what they should testify about. The question is, what do you know about those those investments? Because you've told the Commission that you're very interested in the GEPF.
Oh, so you're reframing the question.
No, my question is the same. My question is, are you aware that those decisions were to invest in PAIDF 1 and PAIDF 2 were taken by the Board of Trustees of the GEPF? You're either aware or you're not aware.
I'm not aware that it was taken by GPIF, but I'm aware that 630 million US dollars was invested in PAIDF 1 by 2009. Considering that it is a 15-year fund, and we are now at 10-year mark, it would be interesting as to how much is US dollar 630 million worth in dollar terms. What you read from the statements, annual reports, is that you publish this so-called progress of these investments in rands, but this was a dollar transaction.
But your answer is that yes, you know
Yes.
that it was the board of the GEPF that took the decision to invest. That's your answer.
I would say yes, because that money would have not left. Simple logic, the kitty of the pensions fund, without the board's approval. All what we need is minutes, that's all, to verify that.
Do you know how much of the $630 million was invested by the GEPF in PAIDF 1?
No, I don't know. I'll have to check my notes on that. I can submit to you later in writing.
But if you're so concerned about the fleecing of pension monies that belong to the workers, why have you not investigated just that small aspect of how much money was in fact invested by the GEPF in PAIDF 1?
It was for that reason that I asked the Commission, one, to identify where are these assets, where is this money invested in the continent, if it is in the continent or outside the country. So I'm waiting for the Commission to respond to that.
If you had read the replying affidavit, you would have found out exactly how much money
Which replying affidavit?
was invested. Well, if you don't know what replying affidavit I'm referring to, I'll move on.
Thank you.
Page 288, Mr. Holomisa, at the bottom. You were told that paragraph 8.2 in April, this is now 2006, and in line with the vision of President Mbeki, Mahlwele was tasked by the PIC to set up the Pan-African Infrastructure Development Fund. In order to attract private sector investment in the PAIDF, the fund had to be, and had to be seen to be, entirely independent of government control. Do you know that? That's an important fact, that the PAIDF had to be independent of government control.
Yes.
The PIC Executive Committee, following internal procedures, loaned to the PAIDF Facilitation Trust, not to the second applicant as erroneously stated in paragraph 1611 of the founding affidavit. Seed capital in the amount of 25 million rand, which was also approved by National Treasury.
I'm aware about that. And you also paid it back according to your reports.
Actually, where's page 28? I can tell you that the amount originally loaned wasn't 25 million. That's more along the lines of how much was eventually used with cost. But the amount originally loaned was 17,046,929 rand.
Yes.
And the loan, as you're told at page 288 at the bottom, is between the PIC and the Pan-African Infrastructure Fund Facilitation Trust. Are you aware of that?
Yes.
So you keep saying in all your questions and evidence, you keep saying that the seed capital funding, we can refer to it, the 25 million, doesn't matter. You keep saying that was given to Harith. But that's not correct, is it?
Harith was, according to my own statements earlier, I said Harith was established by PIC, seeded 100% by PIC. You have just confirmed that the PIC appointed Mr. Matlwale to head the Harith. Where?
No.
You didn't say so?
No.
Oh, okay. But anyway, I
said to you, if you look at the bottom of 8.2,
maybe I didn't hear you correctly.
Mr. Matlwele resigned from his employment with the PIC. He was tasked by the PIC to set up the PAIDF.
What's the difference?
Can you wait for the question to be completed, please, Mr. Williams?
What's the difference, sir?
No, I'm saying, can you wait for the question to be completed first?
The PIC loaned, the PIC executive loaned to the PAIDF Facilitation Trust, not to Harith Fund managers, the seed capital of 25 million rand.
Well, it's a question of semantics, really. You need to bring minutes of that, so we check the veracity of your allegation.
You don't believe that?
No. I'm not disputing that, but bring evidence and proof that, because if you read annual reports, everything, it says PIC established Harith, or rather seeded Harith with 100%, and that they appointed Mr. Matlwale as CEO, but later on, the shares of that Harith company ended up being 70% being divided amongst the directors, namely Jabu Moleketi, Matlwele, and Wiley, and also a 2% not allocated, but the deeds office, I'm sure, they can help us when it comes to share certificates.
What was shared with Mr. Moleketi, Mr. Matlwele, and Mr. Wheatley? What did you say was shared, 70% to them?
I said to you, the PIC's seeded Harith with 100% of the shares, or whatever, or the money. But later on, the PIC ended up giving some of their shareholding to some directors. The evidence will show that part of that was given to the former chairperson of the PIC, Jabum Legate, the CEO of Harith, 7%, 30%, Jabum Legate, 7%, I think Wiley, 2%. If you want proof, I'll give you after this.
Is that contained in the report that you referred to?
Yes, in my document, in my report, which I submitted this year. I'll show you. You yourself, if you go to page 289, you said in January 2007, Harith FM was set up by Matlwele to manage the PAIDF. What a contradiction. It's you.
Where's the contradiction?
You have been trying to ask questions as to what's going on, but you knew that you said so in your court papers.
Where's the contradiction, Mr. Holomisa?
I'm not going to answer that one.
Okay.
Because you have been arguing differently.
I'm talking about 2006. You can see that on page 288.
So what's your
Now-
point exactly?
Let's go.
What's your point? You please empower this commission.
If you address yourself to us, it'd be much easier. What is council's point,
Yes.
rather than what is your point?
Thank you, sir. I'm not used to this court procedure.
My point, Mr. Holomisa, is I'm demonstrating to you that if you had bothered to read the replying affidavit and had bothered to make that available to the Commission, a lot of the speculation that you entered into the last time you appeared before the Commission would have been cleared up. So now we know, as a matter of fact, and the evidence will support this, it's already there, something you should have known, that the seed funding was paid by the PIC to the PAIDF Facilitation Trust. Mr. Matlwele was employed by the PAIDF Facilitation Trust.
Sir, I've answered your question and I've said, please bring documentation to that effect. What else do you want me to say?
Now you'll see in paragraph 8.3, page 289, the purpose of the funding or the investment was to investigate the feasibility of the establishment of the fund. Those funds were provided, this is the 25 million, by way of an arm's length loan which was repayable in full plus interest to the PIC. And I've told you, and you seem now to accept that money has been paid back with interest.
Yes, because that's what the annual report says. I've agreed with you on that. I even said 25 million was paid back. I don't know exactly what you want now.
If you go to 8.4, Mr. Moleketi, as chair of the PIC, did not sit on the PIC executive committee and was therefore not a party to the decision to loan the 25 million.
How does that come? Because he was the chairperson of the PIC.
Yes. This was a management exco decision. He was not on that exco, on that executive committee. He was not party to that decision.
Why did he withdraw? Why did he withdraw? Did he excuse himself because he knew maybe there's something which be.
Are you saying that Mr. Moleketi withdrew from this committee?
I'm asking a question.
No, no,
Based on what?
no,
On your question.
no, I don't want this direct addressing. I think, Council, you can restate your question, please.
Thank you,
That Mr. Olomisa
Chairperson,
can
myself.
understand.
I'm putting to you that Mr. Moleketi, as chair of the PIC, was not a member of the committee. I'm not talking about recusal. Was not a member of the committee that decided to enter into this loan agreement with the PAIDF Facilitation Trust.
Do you have any knowledge of that?
I
Mr.
don't have
Olomisa?
any knowledge of that, but in terms of practice, is that these committees meet without the chairperson. One would have expected that such a transaction, if it is approved by that committee or recommended, it would be tabled to the board where he sits.
So your evidence is somewhere, somehow, Mr. Moleketi must have known. But you don't have anything direct, do you?
And that is an irrelevant question. I've answered your question.
And then in 8.5, you were told that the loan plus interest was repaid within 2 years of receipt.
Yes, we know that. It's in the public domain. But you are not answering you are not getting to the point. Where are these assets? What are the returns? Why are you telling us that you are making progress, but you declare it in rand in a dollar transaction? That is misleading.
Are you able to respond to that question, Mr. Berger?
I'm not going to respond to questions, Chair.
Okay. I'll keep on throwing these questions so that I'm empowering the commission.
You do that.
Yeah, let's agree on that.
Not now. All right, then if you move on to 2007, you'll see that from the time of the establishment of the PAIDF in 2006 until about July 2007, potential investors were sought and in some cases secured. And as you pointed out, in January 2007, Harith FM, that's Harith Fund Managers, was set up by Mr. Mahlwele to manage the PAIDF. Do you accept that a fund needs to have a management? A fund needs to be managed.
Yes.
And the managers are not the investors. Sometimes the investors will have an interest in the managers, but the managing company does not itself invest in the fund. You accept that?
I've noted that.
You think it's otherwise?
I've noted, underlined the word noted.
Now, it eventually, the shareholding of Harith FM that is depicted here in 9.3, with the PIC having a 46% shareholding, Old Mutual Life Assurance 12, ABSA Trading and Investment 12, and the Harith Share Incentive Scheme Trust, HSIST, 30%. The trust consists of employees of Harith FM who then have an interest in the company.
Well, I'm happy that you are saying there was a trust where the employees of the FM were involved. I hope that you will provide the proof of the division of those shares for those employees of the FM.
Do you know how it came about that the PIC ended up with 46%?
I'm curious to know. Please explain to us.
The fund, the PIC initially claimed 100% of Harith FM. And then there was a pushback by the investors, because you'll recall that I put to you earlier that it was important, and from the investors' point of view, it was important that the fund and the management of the fund not be subject to government control or government-related control. You recall that?
I hear you.
And in the process of this pushback, there was a negotiation, and ultimately, and the documents are there, and they will be placed before the Commission, ultimately, the PIC sold its shares, gave up its shares, to the extent of bringing its shareholding down from 100 to 46%.
Okay.
Are you aware of that?
I'm aware, but sold it to whom? Just explain to us.
Well, the investors, the PIC was paid, and I'll give you the figure in a moment,
Okay.
was paid millions of rand
Right.
in order for its shareholding to come below 50%.
What, true you say, what percentage was reserved for the employees? And how was it broken down?
I just told you 30%.
30%.
Yes.
And then can you break it down? Is it true that, through your chairperson, that the 30% was given part of those people as who had Jabum Loketi, Mahlwale? Were they beneficiaries of that? And if so, how was it structured? Did you involve other people to buy those shares? Or was it an in-house arrangement?
I can tell you that Mr. Mahlwele was an employee, and therefore he would have shared in the HSIST share.
Therefore, we would like, through your chair, that we get a deed certificate which will clarify the division of those shares. Please.
So let me continue, Mr. Holomisa.
Can my colleague just wants to ask a question.
Sorry.
Just a question for clarification. What was the purchase price for that transaction?
My understanding, Commissioner, is that there was a dividend declaration by the company in the sum of 70 million.
17.
No, 70. It's 770,050,772. 70 million and 50,772 rand.
The portion for the 100% of the business, or for the portion of the transaction?
For the 54.
For the-
To the evidence will come on Monday that the PIC had control of this company and therefore took 100% of the company. And because of the negotiations, the PIC reduced its shareholding from 100% to below 50%. And in return for that, the PIC was paid a dividend of over 70 million rand.
All right, thanks.
And I can also tell you, Mr. Holomisa, that the PIC, that dividend was paid in June of 2009. In October 2012, the PIC got a further dividend of 16,100,000. And that distribution was as a result of moving the management agreement. You know that at a point in time, the management agreement of the PAIDF1 was subcontracted from Harith FM to Harith General Partners, Harith GP.
Through your chair, exactly why did this fund management decided to subcontract its work to this other institution you've just mentioned. And where it is confusing, when you look at the directors of the fund and the directors of the same other company, you find the same names.
The directors of the fund,
Yes,
the directors of the PAIDF.
No. I'm saying you said there was a shift, there was what's this?
A subcontract of the management.
Yes, the management, the fund was authorized by PIC to manage that fund. Then they shifted and appointed a new company. What do they call it? Is
Harith General Partners.
yes, Harith General
Yes,
Partners.
that's the one I'm
yes.
telling you about.
Yes, Harith General Partners. So what confuses me, you will find that the same directors appear on both companies. The question is, who pays for the fund managers, and who pays for the general managers to do this transaction? Who bills who?
Mr. Holomisa, I'm not following your question, and you will see it will all become apparent as I go through the affidavit. Just bear with me. The point I want to make to you is this, that from 2009 to 2018, the PIC, let me go back. In relation to the facilitation, the seed money, the so-called 25 million, which in fact was 17 million, that loan has been repaid in full. The total amount of the loan, I can tell the Commission, was 21,692,683.67. That was loan and expenses. The interest on that loan amounted to 952,556.82. Yeah. So the loan plus expenses is 21 million.
I've got that.
Okay.
Give me the second figure.
The interest is 952,556, 952,556.82. So, yes. So the total amount paid to the PIC in relation to the seed funding of the Facilitation Trust was 22,645,240.49. Over and above that, the payments to the PIC as a result of its shareholding in the management company, there was the initial payment of the 70 million, and there were further payments being dividend distributions. The total amount of all of those payments is 95,810,772 rand. 95,810,772. So when you come back to page 289, paragraph 8.6, you were told, Mr. Holomisa, that the PIC, in addition to enjoying a return of capital plus interest, that was the seed money plus the interest, received dividends. It says there in excess of 100 million, but it should really be approximately 100 million. The actual figure is 95.8 million, which the PIC has received as a result of its shareholding in Harith FM.
So what's your question?
no depletion of the funds of the PIC whatsoever in relation to this transaction. Would you agree?
Fortunately, you are still going to testify next week, Monday. All what you are trying to say, I think you need to contextualize it and bring proof. Everything you say here must be accompanied by documentation. But let me go back to what I said earlier. You have these Harith General Partners, and then you have the HFM, right? But what is strange, you will find that Thuli Gebelana, Alwyn Vessel, Penny Chalimpi are also appearing on the Farid managers, both sides. So that's why I'm saying...
Both sides meaning Harith FM and Harith GP?
Yes.
Yes, I'll get there if you'll let me.
But you agree that there is such a duplication. What does it mean to you?
I'll get there, Mr. Holomisa. Let's deal with this.
Looking forward.
All right, don't answer each other.
Mr. Commissioner.
I think it's 12. It's 12 now, and we were aiming at breaking at 12 so that we can get to the airport, those of us who are leaving. So would this be a convenient time, just where you two are beginning to argue? Would this be a convenient time to take the adjournment today?
I just want to get an answer to my question, and then we can take the adjournment.
Can you just repeat that question?
Would you agree, thank you, Chair. Would you agree, Mr. Holomisa, that on this transaction, the seed funding by the PIC of the PAIDF Facilitation Trust, and on the evidence that I have given you, you have no contrary evidence. On this particular transaction, there is no fleecing of the PIC whatsoever. In fact, the PIC has made a handsome profit of over 95 million rand, in addition to the interest it earned on the seed funding. Would you agree with that?
I hope when we go and talk about Capitec transaction, you will see how I mean by this fleecing business and other transactions.
I'm dealing with this transaction. I'll get to the other transactions. On this transaction, there's no fleecing. In fact, it's the opposite.
No, I cannot take your word on that. I said I need documentation, and you keep on coming with this question.
But you've got no evidence to contradict what I've just said
That's
to you.
why I said the inquiry must be investigated, these allegations. What do you want?
Mr. Commissioner, we've reached 12 o'clock.
Sure.
And before we adjourn, can I make the following, hopefully practical, suggestion going forward? General Holomisa came to this commission with a lot of questions, rightly or wrongly. He said it must be investigated, and I want answers to that. I understand the position of my learned friend on this issue, but wouldn't it be more practical, and I'll discuss it with my colleagues after we adjourn, for his clients to come on Monday, testify, put the evidence before you with proof, and it might be the end of all General Holomisa's questions. It might not be necessary to proceed with cross-examination, because if the proof are there, and he's got no counter-proof, it's the end of the story. That's just a practical suggestion.
Chair.
I don't really want to hear argument on that part. I think I want to suggest that council get together, Advocate Lieber and yourselves, Mr. Berger, and deal with that. I don't know if it could be possible, probably not, to set out questions that Mr. Holomisa needs to answer. It would make things much easier, but probably impracticable.
Chair, we requested permission from the Commission to cross-examine Mr. Holomisa because, as the rules provide, he has implicated our clients in all sorts of manner of corruption. This Commission has ruled that we have a right to cross-examine Mr. Holomisa. Our request is that we be allowed to complete the cross-examination of Mr. Holomisa, and I can assure the Commission that after Mr. Holomisa has been cross-examined, my three clients who have hearts in their bodies as opposed to the companies will come and testify before this Commission.
I think my colleague wants to make some comment.
Mr. Berger, I'm just thinking that it might work better if we have a full, complete picture, analyze the common cause issues, and then if there are still sort of disagreements, then you can go on to cross-examine on those issues. And if he needs to cross-examine you too, that can be done. Otherwise, it's, you know, we don't have the full picture yet of these companies.
With respect, Commissioner, my clients are not implicating Mr. Holomisa in corruption. And so, in terms of the rules of this Commission, there would be no basis for them to be cross-examined. They're not implicating Mr. Holomisa in anything. So there would be no cross-examination of them, according to the rules of this Commission. There's not a list between, in the proper sense of the word, between us and Mr. Holomisa before this Commission. Our role here is regulated in terms of the rules of this Commission, and that is to cross-examine Mr. Holomisa. And once that is over, because he has implicated our clients in so much corruption, once that is over, the statements will be made available, which will set out, from our point of view, the complete picture.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask a question, saying that I'm not following what Mr. Berger is saying. Is he suggesting to the Commission that he will object to Mr. Holomisa's right to cross-examine his clients?
Yes.
Well, Mr. Chairman, then it presents a completely different picture, because here you have an entity which so far has not produced a single piece of paper other than a mere say-so in a sworn statement before court. In circumstances where this is a matter of manifest public interest, we would like to cross-examine them. We would like to cross-examine all these individuals that we always understood that the basis upon which the cross-examination we didn't object to was that they in turn would subject themselves to cross-examination. So the idea that they will come here, parade themselves, preach to everybody, and then walk out of the room simply does not conduce to a better ventilation of the issues. This is a commission of inquiry. We need the facts to be put up. And sometimes cross-examination facilitates the gathering of the evidence. So we should really reconsider why we should subject Mr. Holomisa to this purposeless cross-examination if it will not be accompanied by a cross-examination of these entities.
For the record, Mr. Commissioner, I can cross-examine my learned friend's clients on Monday in terms of the rules. But I think it's for the moment, it is unnecessary to engage in all these arguments. I'll meet with my colleagues and we'll bring a solution to the Commission on Monday morning.
Yes, Mr. Lowe, I think that's a practical solution, because I thought I would say, I'm not able to rule now. If I need to look at anything, we'll do so and come back on Monday. But I would welcome you meeting and arrive at a amicable solution. I must say, Mr. Berger, I didn't think that someone can come and give evidence, rather to come and cross-examine than give evidence and not expect to be cross-examined. But I shall look at that and consider it.
The rules, Chairperson, only provide for cross-examination of a person who implicates someone else in wrongdoing. And those are the rules of this tribunal. And if there is to be an application, I don't know on what basis there would be such an application, but if there is to be an application to cross-examine my clients by Mr. Holomisa, I don't know what rule would be relied on, but in any event, that would have to be a substantive application which we would be entitled to answer.
Yeah, thinking logically, I think that there should be cross-examination. I mean, if a witness comes and put matters or put certain issues to to Mr. Olomisa, for instance, if we use this example, I don't know what the strength of the evidence of that witness will be if that witness can't be cross-examined, thinking logically. But let's leave it there for the moment, and I'll consider it when we come back. Yeah.
Given the voluminous documentation that has been presented to us today as the Commission, I strongly urge that the statements being made by your clients for Monday be with us by Friday afternoon, close of business 5 o'clock, so that we have the ability to go through things properly in the context and are not presented with them as we come to the table. Because that, I think, seriously disadvantages the commissioners in their ability to ask the relevant questions. So if we can assure you through Advocate Liver that we have the documentation, in addition to these files that we got as we came in here, so that we are also in a position to do our job properly.
I can assure you that the statements will be with the Commission before close of business on Friday.
Can I perhaps add that I have the arrangement with the lawyers, my learned friend, that it will be presented to us tomorrow afternoon, and it will be in electronic format available to the Commission Thursday night.
But preferably hard copies as well when we come on Monday.
Yes, Mr. Commissioner, it will be delivered on Sunday afternoon to your hotel.
Anything before we take the adjournment, Mr. Berger?
No, that is it.
Mr. Ngubethu?
No, Mr. Chair, thank you very much.
Yes, the Commission adjourns until Monday at 10.